It's April 26, 1944. Somewhere in the vast American heartland, near a small Michigan town called Ypsilanti, something impossible is happening. Every 63 minutes, a machine weighing 30,000 pounds rolls out of the largest building on Earth. Not a car. Not a truck. A 4-engine bomber capable of carrying 8,000 pounds of explosives across an ocean. The B-24 Liberator. 70 feet long. 110 feet from wingtip to wingtip. A flying fortress constructed from 500,000 individual parts. And they're building one every single hour. But here's what makes your blood run cold. This isn't the only factory. Across America, in plants from California to Connecticut, from Texas to New York, assembly lines are churning out bombers, fighters, transports, trainers. By the time the sun sets on 1944, American factories will have produced 96,000 aircraft in a single year. Do the math. That's one complete airplane rolling off an American assembly line every 5 minutes. 24 hours a day. 7 days a week. For an entire year. An entire Air Force manufactured in the time it takes you to drink a cup of coffee. And here's the part that will haunt you. In 1939, just 5 years earlier, America ranked 41st among the world's industrial nations in aircraft production. 41st. The entire United States military owned fewer than 2,000 planes, most of them obsolete. 5 years. That's all it took to transform a nation that could barely build 3,000 planes a year into an industrial colossus producing 300,000. This is the story of the greatest manufacturing miracle in human history. A story of impossible deadlines, revolutionary thinking, and ordinary people who achieved the extraordinary. A story that begins not with factories or assembly lines, but with a single terrifying realization. America was about to fight the most industrialized war the world had ever seen. And in 1939, it wasn't even remotely ready. September 1, 1939. German tanks roll across the Polish border, and the world erupts into flames. Britain and France declare war on Nazi Germany. In Washington, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt stares at intelligence reports that paint a nightmare scenario. Europe is falling and falling fast. The German Luftwaffe commands the skies. Their production capacity is staggering. They're churning out fighters and bombers by the thousands. Meanwhile, the United States Army Air Corps possesses approximately 1,700 aircraft. Total. Most of them are biplanes that wouldn't survive 5 minutes against modern German fighters. Roosevelt knows the math is brutal. America cannot remain neutral forever. And when the inevitable comes, when American boys are sent to fight overseas, they'll need planes. Thousands of them. In January 1939, Roosevelt makes his move. He goes before Congress and requests $300 million for aircraft procurement. He wants the Army Air Corps to expand, to modernize, to prepare. Congress approves funds for 3,251 new aircraft. It sounds impressive. But against the German war machine producing planes by the tens of thousands, it's a drop in an ocean. And there's a darker problem lurking beneath the numbers. American aircraft manufacturers don't have the capacity. They're small operations building planes one at a time, almost by hand. Custom work. Artisan craftsmanship. Each aircraft slightly different from the last, requiring skilled workers to hand-fit every component. It's the way planes have always been built. But it's also catastrophically slow. Building a single bomber takes months. The German Messerschmitt Bf 109 fighter requires 4,000 man-hours of skilled labor. Even with optimal conditions, American manufacturers struggle to deliver more than a handful of aircraft per week. Roosevelt understands what few others do. This war won't be won by superior tactics or better generals. It will be won by production. By the nation that can build more tanks, more ships, more aircraft than the enemy can destroy. And in 1939, America is losing that race before it even begins. The British lifeline. Then something unexpected happens. Britain and France, desperate for aircraft to fight the Luftwaffe, turn to American manufacturers. The 1939 Neutrality Act allows belligerent nations to purchase arms from the United States, provided they pay cash and arrange their own shipping. Cash and carry. The British Purchasing Commission arrives in America with blank checks and desperate urgency. They place orders worth over $1 billion. Aircraft, engines, parts, anything that flies. For American manufacturers, it's a lifeline. Capital floods into the industry. New factories begin construction. Assembly lines expand. But the British and French want something American manufacturers aren't equipped to deliver. They want speed, volume. Thousands of aircraft, delivered within months. The manufacturers scramble. They hire more workers. Buy more tools. Expand their facilities. It's not enough. Then in June 1940, France falls. The German blitzkrieg tears through French defenses in 6 weeks. Paris surrenders. Britain stands alone against the Nazi war machine. And suddenly, every aircraft order France placed transfers to Britain. The pressure intensifies. The British need planes desperately. Their pilots are fighting for survival in the skies over England. Roosevelt watches the Battle of Britain unfold with grim recognition. Britain is the last democracy standing between Hitler and total domination of Europe. If Britain falls, America will face the Nazi Empire alone. On December 29, 1940, Roosevelt delivers a fireside chat that changes everything. We must be the great arsenal of democracy, he tells the American people. Arsenal of democracy. 3 words that will transform the nation. Roosevelt announces staggering production goals. America will build 185,000 aircraft, 120,000 tanks, 55,000 anti-aircraft guns, 18 million tons of merchant shipping. In Adolf Hitler's headquarters, his advisors read the American announcement and laugh. They call it propaganda. Impossible fantasies. In 1939, America produced fewer than 3,000 military aircraft. Hitler's advisors assure him the Americans are bluffing, trying to intimidate Germany with inflated numbers. Americans can only make refrigerators and razor blades, sneers Hermann Göring, commander of the Luftwaffe. They're about to discover how catastrophically wrong they are. William Knutson's War. Roosevelt knows something his enemies don't. America possesses an industrial infrastructure unlike anything the world has ever seen. The automobile industry alone produces millions of vehicles every year. Assembly lines perfected over decades. Mass production techniques refined to ruthless efficiency. The capacity exists. It just needs to be redirected. Roosevelt recruits William Knudsen, president of General Motors. Knudsen is a Danish immigrant who rose through the automotive industry on brilliance and relentless work ethic. He understands mass production better than almost anyone alive. Roosevelt gives him an impossible mission. Transform American industry for war. Convince private manufacturers to retool their factories, reorganize their assembly lines, and produce weapons instead of consumer goods. And do it fast. Knudsen assembles a team of industrialists. Men who've spent careers perfecting production efficiency. Together, they approach American businesses with a proposition. The government will provide low-interest loans to retool factories. Advance payments to build new facilities. Cost-plus contracts that guarantee profit. The automobile manufacturers bite. Chrysler agrees to build tanks and anti-aircraft guns. Buick will manufacture engines for bombers, 74,000 of them. They'll also produce tank destroyers and power trains. General Motors pivots entire production lines toward military vehicles. But the crown jewel of this transformation, the project that will epitomize America's industrial might, comes from Ford Motor Company. They're going to build bombers. Not components. Not parts. Complete aircraft. And they're going to build them the way Ford builds cars. On an assembly line. Charles Sorensen's vision. January 1940. The Roosevelt administration approaches Ford Motor Company with a request. Build components for the B-24 Liberator bomber. Wings. Fuselages. Tail sections. Henry Ford sends his vice president of production to assess the proposal. His name is Charles Sorensen. Sorensen is a Danish immigrant who started at Ford in 1905 as a $3 a day pattern maker. Now he's the company's top manufacturing expert. Associates admire his brilliant mind and fear his volcanic temper in equal measure. He travels to San Diego to observe Consolidated Aircraft's B-24 production facility. What he sees horrifies him. There are no blueprints. No accurate measuring tools. Workers custom-fit major components because no 2 planes are built to identical specifications. Final assembly happens outdoors in the California sun. Each aircraft is essentially handcrafted. Sorensen watches workers painstakingly fit wing sections to fuselages. Every joint requires adjustment. Every connection demands skilled labor to hand-match components. In his memoirs, Sorensen would later write, "What I saw reminded me of the way we built cars at Ford 35 years earlier. Before the assembly line. Before mass production. Before Ford revolutionized manufacturing." An Army Air Force officer notices Sorensen's disapproval. "If you had to make the whole plane," he asks, "how would you do it?" Sorensen doesn't hesitate. "I'll have something for you tomorrow morning. One night. One sketch. One revolution." That night, Charles Sorensen sits alone in his room at the Coronado Hotel. He knows the task is insane. A B-24 Liberator bomber is nothing like a Ford automobile. It's 5 times heavier, vastly more complex, comprised of 500,000 individual parts. But Sorensen also knows something fundamental. The same principles that revolutionized automobile production can apply to anything. Break the design into essential units. Create separate production layouts for each component. Build and deliver units in sequence to a final assembly line. Mass production. Sorensen works through the night. Using nothing but notes from his factory tour and 35 years of production experience, he designs an aircraft manufacturing facility from scratch. By 4 o'clock in the morning he's finished. On a hotel notepad in pencil, Sorensen has sketched the largest industrial building ever conceived. A factory 1 mile long and a quarter-mile wide. 3.5 million square feet of assembly space. He estimates it will require an investment of $200 million. Employ 100,000 workers. Use 500,000 parts and 30,000 components. And it will produce one complete B-24 Liberator bomber every single hour. The next morning, Sorensen presents his sketch to Henry Ford. Ford approves immediately. The Army Air Force stares at Sorensen's hotel notepad drawing and authorizes the entire project. They're going to build it. A factory unlike anything the world has ever seen. They're going to call it Willow Run. The skeptics. April 18, 1941. Ford breaks ground on Willow Run. The location is 30 miles west of Detroit, near the tiny township of Ypsilanti. It's farmland, flat, empty, perfect for the massive structure Sorensen envisions. Construction begins immediately. And immediately the skeptics emerge. Will it run? They joke. The plant earns the derisive nickname before a single aircraft rolls off the line. The doubt isn't surprising. What Ford is attempting has never been done. Aircraft have always been built by skilled craftsmen, one at a time. The idea of mass-producing bombers like automobiles strikes many experts as absurd. But construction continues. The factory rises from Michigan farmland like a monument to American ambition. 1 mile long. 3.5 million square feet. The largest single industrial building on Earth. Inside, Sorensen implements his revolutionary vision. Separate production lines for every major component. Wings fabricated in one section. Fuselages in another. Tail assemblies in a third. Each piece manufactured to precise specifications, ensuring perfect compatibility. No more hand-fitting. No more custom adjustments. Standardization. The assembly line itself stretches nearly a mile. A B-24 enters at one end as scattered components and emerges at the other as a complete, flight-ready bomber. September 10, 1942. 16 months after breaking ground, the first B-24 rolls out of Willow Run. It's a historic moment. But it's also just the beginning. Because that first year, 1942, Willow Run produces only 56 aircraft. Not the 1 per hour Sorensen promised. Not even close. The skeptics grow louder. Will it run? They mock. The labor crisis. The problem isn't the factory. It's the workforce. Sorensen's assembly line requires 35,000 workers. Skilled workers who can operate complex machinery, read technical blueprints, perform precise riveting and welding. But where do you find 35,000 skilled workers in the middle of a war? Most able-bodied men are being drafted into military service. The traditional industrial workforce is vanishing, shipped overseas to fight. Ford faces a choice. Abandon Sorensen's ambitious production goals, or find an unconventional solution. They choose the unconventional. Rosie's Army. The recruitment posters go up across America. We can do it. The image becomes iconic. A woman in work clothes, flexing her arm, radiating strength and determination. Rosie the Riveter. It's more than propaganda. It's a revolution. Women flood into Willow Run. Thousands of them. By 1943, they comprise nearly 40% of the workforce. Some sources claim the number reached even higher. These aren't jobs women were traditionally allowed to hold. Factory work. Heavy industry. Skilled labor. Before the war, conventional wisdom held that women were too emotionally fragile for industrial environments. Too weak for the physical demands. The women of Willow Run prove that notion catastrophically wrong. They operate rivet guns weighing dozens of pounds. Tools so heavy that wielding them for 9-hour shifts requires genuine physical strength. They work 6 days a week, sometimes 7. 9-hour shifts. 12-hour shifts. Whatever production demands. For $1 per hour. They're given salt tablets to reduce bathroom breaks. The work is exhausting, dangerous, relentless. And they're spectacular at it. Women rivet wing sections, install electrical systems, assemble cockpit controls, work on transparent nose cones for bombers. Their precision and dedication spread across every section of aircraft production. One woman in particular becomes legendary. Her name is Rosie Monroe. She works on the Willow Run assembly line building B-24 Liberators. Hollywood producers, filming a promotional documentary about war bond sales, spot her on the factory floor. She becomes the face of Rosie the Riveter, the embodiment of millions of women who stepped into roles society claimed they couldn't handle. By late 1943, Willow Run employs a workforce that would have been unthinkable just 5 years earlier. Women, African Americans, workers from diverse backgrounds, all united by a single goal: build bombers. Build them fast. And finally, by November 1943, they hit their stride. November 3, 1943. The 1000th B-24 Liberator rolls off the Willow Run assembly line. Production accelerates. The bugs are worked out. The workforce is trained. The assembly line operates like a precision instrument. And then comes April 1944. One every 63 minutes. April 1944. Willow Run achieves what the skeptics called impossible. In a single month, working 2 9-hour shifts 6 days a week, the factory produces 453 complete B-24 Liberator bombers. Do the math. 453 aircraft in 468 working hours. One complete, flight-ready 4-engine bomber every 63 minutes. Not components. Not partially assembled kits. Complete aircraft. 30,000 pounds of aluminum, steel, rubber, and glass. 70 feet long. 110 feet wide. 4 engines. 10 machine guns. Capable of carrying 8,000 pounds of bombs across an ocean. Rolling off an assembly line faster than most modern car factories produce sedans. Charles Sorensen's 1 bomber per hour promise, the boast that made him a laughingstock, is reality. But Willow Run isn't alone. Across America, the industrial mobilization Roosevelt envisioned is reaching its full, terrifying potential. Consolidated Aircraft's San Diego plant produces B-24s. Another consolidated facility in Fort Worth, Texas, builds them. Douglas Aircraft's Tulsa plant assembles bombers from Willow Run knockdown kits. North American Aviation churns out P-51 Mustang fighters. Boeing produces B-17 Flying Fortresses and the massive B-29 Superfortress. By 1944, American factories are producing 96,000 aircraft in a single year. 96,000. Fighters, bombers, transport aircraft, trainers. An air force assembled from raw materials in 12 months. One complete airplane every 5 minutes. Every 5 minutes. 24 hours a day. 7 days a week. For an entire year. The numbers are so staggering they don't feel real. By the end of World War II, America will have produced 300,000 aircraft. 300,000. More than all other combatant nations combined. The German nightmare. Berlin, Germany. Albert Speer stares at intelligence reports with mounting horror. Speer is Hitler's Minister of Armaments and War Production. A brilliant architect and organizer, he's responsible for keeping Germany's war machine operational. He understands industrial capacity better than almost anyone in the Nazi leadership. And what he's reading terrifies him. American production statistics from 1944. Photographic evidence from neutral sources showing factory operations. Intelligence estimates of output. 96,000 aircraft. In 1 year. Speer compares this to German production. The Messerschmitt Bf 109, Germany's primary fighter, requires 4,000 man-hours to build. Each plane is assembled by skilled craftsmen who train for 6 months. Workers construct entire sections individually, hand-fitting components. Meanwhile, at Willow Run, each B-24 requires approximately 1,225 man-hours in final assembly. Less than 1/3 the labor of a Bf 109. Despite being a 4-engine bomber 5 times heavier. The Americans have applied automotive mass production to aircraft manufacturing. Something German industry never seriously attempted. Speer takes his findings to Hitler. At a May 1944 conference, he presents the photographic evidence and production statistics. He explains what American factories are achieving. Hitler studies the materials briefly. Propaganda, he declares. The Americans wish us to believe these fantasies. No nation can produce aircraft like automobiles. Speer argues desperately. But that is precisely what they are doing, he insists. They have applied automotive mass production to aircraft. Hitler refuses to believe it. accuses Speer of defeatism. But Speer knows the truth. Germany has already lost the production war. The outcome is now inevitable. Hermann Göring's boast, "Americans can only make refrigerators and razor blades," has aged like milk in the sun. The arsenal unleashed. By 1944, the arsenal of democracy is fully operational. It's not just aircraft. Henry Kaiser's shipyards on the Pacific coast are producing Liberty ships faster than the German U-boats can sink them. Kaiser's 7 yards alone build 821 Liberty ships and 219 Victory ships. Working from prefabricated components and standardized designs, his workers set records that seem impossible. The construction time for a Liberty ship drops from months to weeks, then to days. One ship, the SS Robert E. Peary, is completed in 4 days and 15 hours. From keel laying to launch in less than a week. Across America, factories that once produced consumer goods now manufacture weapons. Buick makes tank engines. Cadillac produces armored vehicle components. Chrysler builds tanks. American industry produces 297,000 aircraft, 193,000 artillery pieces, 86,000 tanks. 2/3 of all Allied military equipment comes from American factories. The numbers are so overwhelming that by 1944, the United States alone outproduces all Axis nations combined. Germany, Japan, and Italy, working together, cannot match American output. The bloody math. The production miracle serves a grim purpose. Aircraft losses in World War II are catastrophic. RAF bomber crews suffer 77% casualties. The Bloody 100th Bomb Group and countless others pay devastating prices in the skies over Europe. The RAF loses 8,325 planes. The U.S. Army Air Forces lose 7,062 aircraft in the European theater alone. Total American combat and training losses approach 65,000 aircraft. 65,000 planes. Destroyed. Shot down. Crashed. Lost. But American factories replace them faster than they're destroyed. For every bomber shot down over Germany, 2 more roll off assembly lines back home. For every fighter lost in the Pacific, 3 more are already being loaded onto transport ships. The Axis powers cannot win a war of attrition against this level of production. They're fighting an enemy that replaces losses faster than they can inflict them. Major Werner Pluskat of the German 352nd Division will later say, upon seeing the D-Day invasion fleet, "This is the end for Germany." He's right. The invasion succeeds partly because American factories provided the aircraft, ships, and equipment necessary to achieve overwhelming superiority. By August 1944, Allied aircraft dominate European skies. German pilots face impossible odds. For every Luftwaffe fighter, there are dozens of American and British aircraft. The production miracle becomes a strategic weapon as devastating as any bomb. Victory forged in factories. By the time Willow Run shuts down B-24 production in 1945, the factory has built 8,685 Liberators. Ford's share represents nearly half of all B-24s produced during the war. Out of 18,482 total B-24 Liberators manufactured, Ford built 6,972 complete aircraft plus knockdown kits for 1,893 more. The B-24 becomes the most produced heavy bomber in history. That distinction belongs entirely to the mass production revolution Charles Sorensen conceived in a hotel room in a single night. But the true legacy extends far beyond a single aircraft or factory. Willow Run proves something revolutionary. Mass production principles, standardization, assembly line manufacturing, interchangeable parts, can apply to anything. Not just cars. Not just simple consumer goods. Anything. The Japanese will later study Willow Run obsessively. Toyota engineers will examine Ford's production system and transform it into just-in-time manufacturing and lean production. The techniques perfected at Willow Run become the foundation of modern industrial efficiency. The human cost and triumph. The women of Willow Run write their own chapter in history. Before the war, society claimed women couldn't handle industrial labor. Too fragile. Too weak. Too emotional. By 1945, they've proven those assumptions utterly, completely wrong. They've operated heavy machinery, performed precision riveting, built complex aircraft components, done everything their male counterparts did, often just as well or better. Rosie the Riveter becomes more than propaganda. She becomes a symbol of capability, determination, and strength that will inspire generations. After the war ends, many women are pushed out of industrial jobs as returning soldiers reclaim positions. But the barrier has been shattered. The assumption that women can't handle certain work has been demolished by their own hands. The numbers that won. September 2, 1945. Japan signs surrender documents aboard the USS Missouri. World War II is over. The final production numbers are staggering. America produced 300,000 aircraft. 297,000 military planes alone. Fighters, bombers, transports, trainers, an air force larger than most nations could conceive. American shipyards built 2,710 Liberty ships. Kaiser's yards alone produced over 1,000. Cargo vessels that carried tanks, ammunition, food, and supplies across 2 oceans. American factories manufactured 86,000 tanks. 193,000 artillery pieces. Millions of rifles, jeeps, trucks. 2/3 of all Allied military equipment, 2/3, came from American industry. The Axis powers never stood a chance against this tsunami of production. From farmland to legend. Today much of Willow Run stands empty or repurposed. The mile-long assembly line is silent. The thunder of aircraft engines no longer echoes through the massive halls. But the legend endures. 1 bomber every 63 minutes. A feat so incredible that people initially refused to believe it was possible. Charles Sorensen's one-night hotel room sketch became reality. His vision transformed warfare, industry, and American history. The skeptics who mocked, "Will it run?" were silenced by production numbers that still seem impossible decades later. Willow Run ran. It ran at a pace the world had never witnessed. And in running it helped save civilization. Here's what haunts you about Willow Run. It's not just that America produced a complete airplane every 5 minutes in 1944. That number is staggering, yes, but it's abstract. The part that reaches into your chest and squeezes is this. In 1939, America ranked 41st in global aircraft production. 5 years later, American factories alone outproduced the entire Axis alliance. 5 years. That's the length of time between being hopelessly unprepared and utterly dominant. It's the story of a nation that transformed itself through sheer will, brilliant innovation, and the labor of ordinary people who achieved extraordinary things. Charles Sorensen sketched a revolutionary factory on a hotel notepad in a single night. Women who society claimed were too fragile for industrial work built bombers with their own hands. Workers from every background came together in the largest building on Earth to manufacture the instruments of victory. 1 aircraft every 5 minutes. But it was never really about the planes. It was about proving that the impossible is merely difficult. That barriers are meant to be shattered. That when survival demands it, humans can accomplish miracles. Roosevelt called America the arsenal of democracy. He was right. But it was more than an arsenal. It was a demonstration that free people, working together toward a common goal, can outperform any authoritarian system. Hitler didn't believe Americans could build aircraft like automobiles. He was wrong. Hermann Göring claimed Americans could only make refrigerators and razor blades. He was catastrophically wrong. Albert Speer knew the truth in 1944. He understood that Germany had lost the production war. That no amount of military genius could overcome the industrial colossus America had become. The assembly lines proved him right. 1 bomber every 63 minutes at Willow Run. 1 aircraft every 5 minutes across America. 300,000 planes by war's end. These aren't just statistics. They're testaments to human capability. Monuments to what becomes possible when innovation meets determination. Willow Run is gone now mostly. The factory that birthed a miracle has fallen silent. But walk through those empty halls if you can and listen. You can still hear it. The thunder of 4-engine bombers rolling off the line. The clang of rivet guns in the hands of Rosie's daughters. The hum of the mile-long assembly line that proved the impossible was real. Every 63 minutes. Every 5 minutes. For 6 years straight. Until freedom won.